Hey guys, Bridget here. In this video, we're going to create this dashboard design from scratch using Figma. So by the end of this video, you're going to learn tips and tricks and also workflows of a designer with over 10 years of experience. So let's get started and let's jump right into the video. All right, so we're back in Figma, and the very first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a frame. So let's select the desktop and then 1440 pixels of width. And here we have our main frame. We're going to rename this to 1, and we're also going to add a layout grid, just like this one here, and we're going to select columns, and we're going to add 12 columns, and we're also going to just give it a little bit of a margin, and we're going to make this light gray. All right, so the very next thing that we're gonna do is we're going to start creating the top level header and the side menu. So right here, we're going to have the header. Let's make it completely white, and we're going to give it a stroke, which is going to be a very light gray, something around these lines. And we're going to duplicate this and create a second rectangle right here on the left, which is going to be quite pronounced since it's going to contain all sorts of different elements that we're going to design in just a moment. I just want to be sure that this is matching perfectly, and here we go. So we're pretty much set. We have two fills, and now what we're gonna do is we're going to add a background color which is going to have a tint of a blue when it comes to the main dashboard design. So something around these lines, and just to make it easier for us to visualize the difference between the background and this inner frame, we're going to add a drop shadow just a little bit, and going to make it maybe a little bit lighter so it looks good still, and I'm going to adjust this. All right, now I'm also going to give it our border radius just a bit for no real reason when it comes to like the usability, but just because it looks cool. So let's go ahead and let's create the logo. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool right here. I'm going to create a perfect rectangle, round it up quite a bit, and I'm going to remove the fill. I'm going to add a stroke, and as it's set on inside by default, that's good. And I'm going to make it completely blue. All right, let's bring this one here below, and now I'm going to go to the far right. I'm going to add some text, which is going to be Francesca. And at the moment I'm having this issue. There's a lot of line height. So I'm just going to write in auto. It's going to catch perfectly the right vertical sizing. This probably is because I was working on another project which had those bigger line heights. So that's that. Let's move this one over here. I'm going to create a novel, and this is basically where the avatar is going to be set. And let's move it on the far right, just like that. And now we're going to leverage some of the icons. We're going to add some arrows. So let's do that, and let's go. So we already have arrow set in. And by the way, I'm using Nucleo Icons, which is a free icon management software which has all sorts of different really good looking icons. Not only good looking, but they're really functional for UI UX. So let's move it over here. I'm going to have the arrow just about here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to use the plugin Content Reel, which you can download for free, of course. And over here, I'm going to add a Figma photo, which I want like a photo to be professional and light in the background. So I don't really want like fancy colors, meaning that something that really takes a lot of visual emphasis. And again, I'm not really looking at the subject. I'm just looking at how it looks in the composition of the dashboard in relation to the colors and the balance and all that. So, all right, we have that. I'm going to make this medium, and you can use a free Google Web font. You don't necessarily need to use this font right here, which is Inter. You can use any font that you prefer, really. So I'm actually going to make it a little bit lighter as well, just like that. And here we go. All right. So I'm going to write here destination, and I'm going to make it semi-bold. Add a little bit of letter spacing in between, and I'm going to create this rectangle below, which is going to be the input field. Well, let's make it just a little bit smaller, also a little bit less of letter spacing as I'm really looking at it. And let's give it just a little bit of a tiny rounded border. And the fill is going to be white. And over here, let's try to make it be 1.5. Yeah, that'll do. All right, so cool. Let's duplicate this text. Let's write here, enter destination. But for this text, we're going to remove the spacing of the letters. So it's just going to be plain like this one here. Maybe let's make it just a little bit lighter. Or even just a bit darker, that'll work. And the medium, that's probably the best sweet spot in between. Let's make this even smaller. And here we go. We have our very first input field. Now that's looking good. And now what we're gonna do is we're going to duplicate this one more time. And I'm going to lock this layer in place. And let's here select date. And here we're going to add a calendar icon. Let's write over here calendar, and we're going to find out one of these icons right here, and we're just going to essentially bring this to a gray, and let's just go ahead and let's make all of this lighter. Let's do it over here. Let's bring it more to the left. And boom, we're set. Let's also go ahead and create another section below, which is going to be this one here. And let's do it over just like that. And what we're going to do now is we're going to create a toggle switch, which is going to have this element. I'm going to create a duplicate of this, make it smaller, bring it over here, move it right here so that it's a perfect oval. All right, let's make this one smaller as well. Cool. I'm going to make this blue. Let's remove the stroke on this one. Let's make it a bit smaller. Let's move this one as well. Now let's scale it down quite a bit. All right. Here we're going to write arrival special. And here below we're going to add some more elements that are going to be useful to book this this element. So let's go ahead and let's write guess. I'm going to create two different sections. So the first one is going to be adult. I'm going to use /2 in order to divide it by 2. Then I'm going to make it still a little bit smaller. And let's go ahead and let's add a arrow. So I'm looking for a very small one. So something like this one here could work well. Let's bring it right here on the far right. Let's change the color, group it together, duplicate, and I'm going to have here children, and here we go. All right, so far so good. Let's duplicate this. Let's bring it all the way down. And I'm going to write apply filters. Bring it to the center. Make this white. Change this to blue. And we are pretty much set. So as you can see, this dashboard is being brought to life step by step. Now, the very next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a line, which is going to serve us as a divider. And probably going to just keep it here. Let's use the gray as we find it right here. Now we're going to duplicate this. We're going to change this to your network. We're going to add a series of names. And we're going to leverage the good old content trail in order to do that. Let's bring it here. Let's bring it more to the right. Maybe let's make them just a tiny bit smaller. And now what we're gonna do is we're going to duplicate this just a few times. And yeah, probably that's okay. We're going to select all of the text, go under plugins, content reel, and I'm going to go ahead under text, full name, apply all. Now I can go back under image and I can find, let's go with some beauty avatars. I think these look pretty good. I don't want these ones, like these are too dark in the composition. I want light photos. So I'm probably going to just go ahead, yeah, maybe something like that. This one works okay. Also this one, it's a little bit of a different angle compared to the other photos. So I'm gonna try some other ones. Yeah, that works okay. So cool, just going to change the names here. All right, so far so good. Let's go and let's add some dots here. They're all animated, don't really need those. Cool. Let's change the color to this one here. And yeah, I think we're pretty much set. So the very next thing that we're gonna do is we're going to go ahead and create the main rectangle sections for the graphs, and probably the graph is going to stay up till here. And I'm going to create a few more of these just to kind of like ballpark the dimensions, and one more here. All right, probably something like that. I'm going to make this one a bit smaller. Let's bring it up, let's stretch it down. Then I'm going to have one final section here below. So cool, this overall is looking good. Probably going to change the stroke colors just to make it a little bit lighter, still visible but lighter overall, and that will pretty much do. All right, so let's get started when it comes to the graph. So I'm going to duplicate this, bring it all the way up, and by the way, just before we continue, I'm just going to select all of these elements, going to lock them into place, so that it's just going to be easier to kind of like manage them. And let's have also this one here. It's going to be 12th January 2021. I'm going to write statistics to date. I'm going to copy the style. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a headline here. Let's make it regular. And I'm going to change the color to something quite pronounced, quite dark, not very saturated. Let's bring this one over here. And I'm going to start adding the different elements. All right, this one's going to be monthly. I'm going to write a few more here, summary, and cash flow. Just making up some numbers here for the sake of the example. I'm going to make it just a bit smaller. So one less for these ones. All right, let's kind of like center it. Now what we're gonna do is we're going to start adding the different arrows, which are going to have a interesting style. So let's make this one 100%. And I'm probably going to go with something like this for this part of the arrow, something like this. And then we're going to add a stroke, which is going to be just a bit more pronounced. And here we go. All right. I think this is going in the right direction. Let's bring it more to the left. And I'm going to add 2 arrows. Let's go in Nucleo. Let's write in arrow. And I'm going to add this one here. Cool, let's make it darker, of course, with the same kind of like base tint. Be just a bit lighter. and a bit bigger. All right, that'll do. Let's group this together. Let's change the direction horizontally, and we have our main arrows. All right, cool. So this is pretty much sorted out at this point. And what we're going to do next is we're going to create the different lines of the graph. So here we go. And we're going to stretch them all the way up to here. Let's change the color to these lines. We're going to go ahead and add different tags. Could have done this before actually when we were duplicating this, but yeah, it's not an issue. Let's make them smaller since these are elements. Oops. Can easily do it like that. And now let's change the months. This one's going to be June. This one's going to be July and August, and we're pretty much set. Let's change the color of these elements. All right. Now at this point, we're going to create the actual graph. We're just going to go ahead and, create different variations and, trying to simulate some data points. Which may or may not be accurate, but that's just us trying to replicate these elements, and yeah, you just need to make it look somewhat realistic. And of course, it really depends on the project. Some projects are going to have like different sets of data points. Other ones are going to be more specific. All right, I'm going to simply close it altogether. And now what we're gonna do is we're going to remove the stroke, going to add the fill. I'm going to make this color, but we're going to make it linear so that we can adjust and create some sort of an effect around these lines. Let's bring it down just a little bit. And now here's this special trick of the chef. We're going to create a drop shadow, going to assign it basically almost zero blur. We're going to change the Y position to up. Now let's make the blur to 0. And as you can see, we're creating like this almost like this line. It's not really working as well as I intended, so probably need to this actually works like a charm if you don't have like straight edges. So we probably wanted to adjust the graph in those regards. But apart from that, the moment where we start adding like these shadows should work pretty well, where there aren't like steep edges. Or another thing that we can do even more easily, actually let's just change these ones up a moment. Even if we're not doing the drop shadow, what we can do is literally just create a duplicate of this and duplicate is going to be below. We're going to select the one above. We're going to change this to full white, just like that. And this one is going to be 100%. We're just going to play around with this hue. Now this one is going to be a solid color. And we can pretty much also like change this graph. We can create like different type of visuals. Maybe one thing that I'd rather do in this case specifically is simply create a cover mask. So as you can see, sometimes it's just about experimenting. I wasn't really like planning for this as it was before starting. So I'm just going to do one thing. I'm going to duplicate this guy. Oops. So I'm going to duplicate this rectangle right here. I'm going to create a mask together with the graph. And now I'm going to apply a stroke to the mask. And I'm going to bring it below so we don't see these outlines right here. So as you can see, this is working like a charm now. And I'm going to change the stroke to blue. All right, 1.2. And I think that's going to work well. All right, perfect. Now, another thing that I want to add in this mix is some data points, which are going to be really small. And they're going to have color maybe like this. I'm going to write a small letter like A. Let's bring it up. All right, let's add a few more of these. This one's going to be B. This one's going to be C. All right, and we pretty much have our graph. Now, just before we wrap this up, just want to make it a little bit bigger. Yeah, something like that. Also need these letters to be bigger. Let's write 10. Or even 9. And here we go. All right, so we have our graph over here, and we're pretty much set. All right, so let's start adding the numbers to the calendar. So it's going to be 0, 1. Let's bring this one here on the right. By the way, since we don't need a frame anymore, I'm going to simply unframe this so that it's going to be easier to just move around and just adjust these elements. and I'm going to make it left aligned, so it's going to be easier to tweak the other ones. Duplicate it a few times with basically Shift Alt and then Command plus D. And now what we're gonna do, we're just going to bring this a little bit more on the right, distribute horizontal spacing. Now we're going to essentially, actually let's group all of them, and you're going to see in just a minute why. Let's bring them down here, then Command plus D again. And yeah, I think we actually nailed it pretty much. So let's bring this one a little bit up. Let's also go with selecting all of these, distribute vertical spacing. Let's go and add the different values, but I'm going to ungroup all of this just to make it easier. So we're going to have 0, 3, 0, 4, 5, 6, 7, you know the drill by now, 9, 10. This is really a shorter way to do this, I guess. If anyone knows of a quick way to rename all of these numbers in a short amount of time, feel free to leave it in the comment section, as that would be highly appreciated. 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29. And then we have 30, 31. Nope, not 32. Here we start again. 3, 4, 5. And for the new month, we're actually going to give it 50%. Oh, missed that one. 50% opacity. And we're good to go. Now let's add also this layer at the very top. And this one is going to be center aligned. What we're gonna do in this case is we're going to stretch it all the way here. I'm simply going to duplicate these guys all the way to the very end. And or actually got the wrong distribution. So this one's going to be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. All right, do we have these top labels? I think I'm going to just bring it down a little bit just to make the top level section breathe. And now we're going to add the fun part, which is going to be these elements, which are going to span across all of this area. Let's make it just a little bit smaller in height. Let's bring it down. And now we're going to bring this text all the way up. We're going to name this coding, or actually still have the all caps. Coding Bootcamp. Let's bring it here. Let's make it white. We're going to give it a little bit of a margin if you wish. It's going to be 2300. We're going to group it together, and let's create a few more of these elements. Maybe this one's going to be Design Bootcamp. It's going to span just this section right here. Could use auto layouts for this as well, so feel free to go ahead and leverage those. And let's create another one right here, which is going to be the UI UX Bootcamp. And the very last one is going to be no bootcamp, but payment. Let's write at 9. And let's make this one span all the way here. We're going to change the color to maybe something around these lines. This one's going to be blue. This one's going to be at 11. And this one's going to be at 6. All right, so here we have it. We have officially completed this dashboard design. Hope this video was helpful, and want to remind you that on my channel you're going to find over 500 videos on UI UX design, and basically where I'm sharing my past experience as a designer. And yeah, I've been doing this for a decade, and I do YouTube videos apparently part-time. So if you're interested in learning more about this, feel free to check them out, and I'll see you in the very next video.